Too.
There we go. All right. Hey, everybody. Happy New Year. It is Skeptic and the Mystic here. We're on episode 67, but our first one in a little while and our first one of 2023. Woohoo!
Yay, we got something to celebrate.
Yeah.
Something to celebrate.
Always things to celebrate. Always things to celebrate. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, the common talk always at the beginning of the year is, are you setting goals, resolutions, intentions, whatever verbiage you want to use? But we're going to talk about striving for a goal versus embodying a vision. And I will start with celebrating that I am in a new job, which the last time we recorded was very close, but not confirmed. And I have officially closed the door on the previous chapter, fully stepped into the new one. And I love this concept of embodying a vision because, as we shared, there was a lot of visioning that had to occur as I moved toward this. And now it provides me some opportunities to keep envisioning a new reality for myself, which is so fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
And just to back up on your stuff is that they had to clear out some stuff that was preventing you from feeling like it was even possible. And that is such a big thing, but we'll dive back into that when we
and very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to start applying that to other areas of life as well.
Yay.
Yes.
So I love, so we decided to talk about this because it's just appropriate. It's what everybody talks about this time of year, but most people talk about what's your goal? What's your goals for the year? Right. And excuse my language, but I fucking hate them. I hate goals. Yeah. I hate setting goals. I have always, I don't know, do you feel this way, Deb? But whenever people are what's your goal? What's your year goal? What's your 5-year goal? And I'm I literally seize up and I get paralyzed.
Yeah. I have always felt that. And even before I had language around it, I think it was more just, I'm so much of a free spirit. I don't fucking know. Right. I'm riding the ride. Mm-hmm. I have some general directions I'd like to go in, but I'm serves me better when I'm let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always been super logical. So I would think that I would be here's my goal and this is what I'm going to do. There's also that part of me that's well, what if I get it wrong? I don't want to screw it up. So that was part of what was always, but I also couldn't see, there was so much stuff that I couldn't see that I could have or experience better than what was. But then when I, like you said, started to get language around it and, being a coach and in an industry when I first started, in the Robbins world, super masculine, right? What's your goal? Strive, go do. And then my clients were always so frustrated because they come back, nope, I didn't do the thing. And so we really had to deconstruct what was preventing them from being in alignment with it, because you can sit there and set those things, but if you don't believe that you can be that person, you're never going to get there.
Right.
And that deep work is uncovering that stuff. And so I just, when people talk about goals, I'm and I have a client who's let's talk about our goals, set our goals. And I'm okay, we're going to go dig a bit deeper. Right.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. And for me, what I really don't like about them is that, and once I heard this from my coach, she talks about how we have these distortions of if this happens when we're striving for a goal, it's if this happens, then I'll feel this. Mm-hmm. Or when this happens, then I'll feel that, right? The if then or when then distortion, mm-hmm. that we're putting all of this pressure on this thing to happen. And then inevitably, everybody does, they're it happened. And I was kind of
oh, yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to kind of go back on that I guess just recently and in particular, putting myself in a new job and a new financial situation, I feel I had to feel it before I could achieve it. And yes. I definitely did embody it. And I also think landing in it and being here now, I as of yet have not lost. It's not been one of those oh, I got it. And now I'm meh, So I think maybe this is exactly what you're going to get to. And I mentioned before we started recording, my sister gave me Your Best Year Ever, this book by an author named Michael Hyatt. And he has a whole process for it is goal setting, but he does touch on the power of your beliefs and how to put emotion behind it, and really kind of gives an interesting framework that I'm willing to try. It wasn't something I would have chosen for myself, but I'm going to explore it because it was gifted to me. Anyway, what was I going to say? Because you were talking about the when I had a point and I lost it. I was rambling. But anyway, I do think there is some value in understanding what you're trying to create, right?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
Yeah. And that's what, whenever I talk to people, like we always talk about, okay, I give the example of somebody who comes to coaching who they say that their goal, right, is to win the gold in track in the Olympics.
Right.
And I've said this to you before, right? And I say, okay. And so most coaching, they'll say, okay, well, what are the actions you need to take, right? And go do them, right? And how will you know? So there's a goal, like the overall goal, like win the gold in the Olympics. And then they have a measurement goal. That's like if this person was like, my goal is to run a mile in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Right? Measurement goal. And then you have the actions, eat X amount of calories. I don't recommend calorie counting, but I know athletes tend to do that, right?
Yeah.
Or work out with my trainer X amount of times. Like there's actions that you need to take. And most coaching stops there. And I always ask them, okay, you want to win the gold in track so that what? And they say, well, so that I can feel significant, proud, and accomplished, right? Okay, so what can you do each day to feel significant, proud, and accomplished? Could you, if you ate X, what you were meant to eat during your training, would you feel significant, proud, and accomplished? Yes. If you worked out with your trainer, would you feel significant, proud, and accomplished? Yes. So I want you to focus on feeling significant, proud, and accomplished each day, week, month, year. The outcome is completely different than if it's just win the gold, win the gold, win the gold.
Yeah. Well, and also I would say you're then creating a habit of fostering those feelings. So then when you do achieve said goal, you have more satisfaction with it because you've practiced feeling the satisfaction.
Right. Because the goal is never the thing. It's just a vehicle to feel the way that we want to feel. And again, when this happens, then I can feel it. We put off feeling like, oh, I can't feel this until this outside circumstance happens, forgetting that we are the creators of our world, right? And we get to create that feeling right here, right now.
Right.
And when we can do that, that thing may happen. Or if it doesn't, you're like, I already got what I got what I wanted.
Right.
Something greater oftentimes happens.
Right.
Or that thing happens, right? And it's just like when you were in that space of like, I don't know if this job's going to happen. You're like, I'm good either way. Like,
yeah, that was very, and I really, really felt that. Like, I thought this job was going to be how it was going to unfold, but I was very like, if it doesn't, because I've just learned also this comes from experiencing life from this framework. I have truly learned that when I don't get what I thought I wanted, there's oftentimes something better. And so as long as you can live in this would be great or something better might be greater.
Yeah.
And then when it happens, you're like, wow, I don't know. And it made me feel like I really can trust because I still have obviously we'll say a vision for sure of, I'm not giving up my Reiki. I'm not giving up, teaching yoga. I'm not giving up sound healing or any of these things that I am working toward. I can do them concurrently. Yeah. And this particular job is helping to foster that. I'm able to use my creativity again. I'm able to, number one, I feel incredibly valued, which was something I was not experiencing before. And it's going to give me some resources to invest back into trainings or growing my business or, I don't know how that will all unfold, but I can trust that it's still taking me on the right path because that's what I was asking for. It's like, I didn't want to be derailed from my ultimate vision. I wanted something to help me move toward it.
Yeah. And the thing that we worked on for you is that financial scarcity, like that fear of financial scarcity. And once you're able to release that and step into, there's abundance all around me, right? Then it's like you literally like, oh, I'm pulling that into me now. Where before it was like, there's this wall. It was like, it couldn't come to you. Right. But now you're like, oh, all the outside stuff is revealing what's going into like what's happening internally. I want to, Colleen's watching. Hi, Colleen. Yeah, she's fostering the feeling each day. It is everything. I was just talking to a client before we jumped on. And she's been working with coaches for a while, but we had a first call right before the holidays and we talked about this. And she's like, if I could keep living my life the way that I have just since our last call, she's like, that would be amazing because that's what I want. And I'm like, you can.
You
like,
can.
That's the secret. Like, you can. It doesn't matter what's going on. Like, we get the choice. And it can be really, like, I understand that there's lots of things that like make it harder. I remember when I lived in that space, it was like, oh yeah, real easy. I'm just going to think like, and be happy. Like, right. I had to do a lot of clearing and get rid of a bunch of stuff that was anchoring me down into that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's for me, the energy work, the ayahuasca, the hypnotherapy, all those things help move those things out.
100%. And I think the energy work is super powerful. And I don't know if you ever heard Marie Forleo has her term. I don't even know if she coined it because I've heard it other places, but unfuckwithable. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like that, like even, sometimes I have situations I have some friendships that have been kind of shifting and it sometimes makes me feel sad, or different relationships evolving in ways that aren't necessarily what you want. And for a moment, I'm like, oh God, I'm bummed out. And then I'm like, fuck that. I am not going to let someone else's actions or how they interact with me bring me down. Like, right. I'm going to choose to respond to this differently. And then I can kind of move myself out of that space of like, well, and for me, taking the personal responsibility, maybe I created that because at some point I did kind of, yeah, exactly. You definitely did. But at some point I kind of put out this call of like, I want some other friends that feel very aligned with my values. And those friends are coming into my life. What that means is sometimes then other people start to kind of phase out. And I'm like, oh, this is all part of what I asked for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I had a client the other day. I was talking about just some things are becoming apparent in her relationship that it's like, oh, things are really, really challenging right now. Right. And I was like, I told her, I'm like, when we do this work and the more aligned we get with ourselves, the more obvious that like it becomes of things that are in our life that aren't in alignment, whether it's our diet, whether it's our lifestyle, whether it's our friends, whether it's our job. Right. And it feels like, oh crap, like I don't want to do this work. It's really hard, but it's just literally illuminating these things are not in alignment. And that in between stage of making that choice to be like, okay, let me just gather data and observe, right? And I always tell them, like, don't make any big decisions. Like, don't be like, I got to cut this person or this thing out of my life. Just notice the contrast, right? And is this who you want to be? And just let it will always naturally fall out of your life.
Mm-hmm. Right? It does. I mean, and that I think is the hardest for me personally. One of the hardest things when I choose to evolve is allowing the things that want to go. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said that because that's the one of the things that one of my friends, Jason, he teaches about the different types of resistance. Have we talked about this? Because I think
I don't know. I'm curious. Oh my God.
I love this. So I want to pull it up just to make sure that I get it all right. But when we are looking to, create changes, we have resistance to a bunch of different places, right? So resistance can show up to the starting point, like I'll use the example of somebody who says that they wanted to lose weight, right? Because that's something big this time of year. Mm-hmm. One, when we think about a goal is losing 20 pounds. Embodying a vision is envisioning your body being the healthiest that it could be. Two very completely things. When I lose the weight, then I'll feel like this, right? Well, here's the thing. We're so conditioned to lose things that you lose the weight, your body's going to look for ways to find it again because you haven't made a whole change in who you are. You haven't embodied the whole vision of who you want to be. It's just, I have to do this, then I'll feel this. But when you embody I am going to be my healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. But if you're not willing to get on the scale, to go get your numbers, see what your numbers are, all the blood and all that kind of stuff, like you can't get anywhere if you're not willing to admit where your starting point is, right? The GPS can't tell you where, like if you plug in a destination, it has to know where you are to get there, right?
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. So we have the resistance to the starting point, right? And just to the current reality. Like, I don't want to admit that I'm so far in debt. I don't want to admit that I'm, so overweight. I don't want to admit that like I'm so miserable in my love life, right? So there's the resistance to the starting point. There's the resistance to the process. So going along with like the weight part, it's like, no, I don't want to, I want my body to be different, but I'm not going to exercise. I want my body to I'm
Right.
not going to change what I'm eating. Right. So you're resistant to the work of it, the process,
Yeah.
or you can be resistant to the end point. Right. Who will I be if I don't have that extra weight?
I think that's one that people are often very blind to, especially in this particular example. I think.
Yes.
I mean, I've just seen it with a lot of people I'm close to.
For sure, because for so many women, and this is not everybody, but for so many women, weight is a protection. Like,
Yeah.
then I'm not going to be attractive, and then they won't hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of women.
And consciously, I bet a lot of people would argue, no, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had 1,000 of those conversations, right?
Yeah.
With women, but when they really get honest, it's like, I don't know who I would be if I had an attractive body again. Like, that's scary to me. And I don't want it. I don't want that attention, because when I had that before, when I was thin before, I did. And, X, Y, and Z happened to me physically.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's a real legit thing. And that's stuff that we have to, work through to clear out. And then the other one is the resistance to like the new identity, but the old identity, like, going away, which is where I think we started. You said, what was it that you said about
allowing what needs to go?
Right.
But
right.
and I do think that redefining who you are is not as easy as it sounds. You have to keep coming back to it. And I think actually, I mean, as it relates to this example, and when we were talking about me shifting my beliefs around money and career and what was possible for me, I really did a lot of like, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but not to our audience, but really sitting with on a daily basis, like walking around feeling like I am a different person. Like I chose a different, parallel universe of myself, right? And I was like, I'm going to step into that one. And sometimes I would feel myself like, oh, I'm back in this person that believes in scarcity. And I'm like, no, going back over here. And I had to keep like literally, it sounds so strange. And if you've never tried it, it sounds really foreign. And it's, in an example of trying to change your physical appearance or your physical state, right? Like of your health, maybe a little bit harder if you can't remember what that felt like to step into it. But yeah, it's a big piece that's tough to conquer, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that word right there, like, we've so been conditioned. I got to conquer. I got to crush this. I got, right. Instead of, okay, let me just embrace where I am right now. And I love, we've talked about before about the whole idea of what I call conscious blabbing, right? To go from, I'm here to, I'm super healthy and fit. It's like, your subconscious is like, nope, you're a liar. Right? And your subconscious will do every single thing it can to stay in alignment with who you believe yourself to be. So transition words, I call conscious blabbing. The B is beginning. Like, I'm beginning to become the healthiest version of myself.
Yes.
Right? The L is for learning. I'm learning how to become the healthiest version of myself. The A is allowing. I'm allowing myself to become healthier today. Okay? And the last B is becoming. So beginning. So I'm becoming someone who is healthy. Right. And those,
I like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's powerful. I remember we did that, years ago. That was one of the things that you introduced me to. And it was very, very helpful to be like, because it does remind you when you fall back, right? When you kind of notice like, oops, I'm back in this original or whatever label you want to give this version that you're trying to release. And also having forgiveness. That was one thing for me too, is I was like, when I notice I'm back there, I'm like, okay, that's okay. Now I noticed. Now I choose over here. Right. And that like choosing to begin again, that's the becoming piece, I think, is okay. I'm just going to start again. And maybe I'm an inch closer now, Yeah.
Yeah. And that, like, when we can, like you said, that forgiveness is such a big part, because we have this belief, I don't know where it's come from, but it's like, just like, so, not apparent. So, what's the word I'm looking for?
Pervasive.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. It's so pervasive that we think that, like, okay, I'm going to decide to make a change, and I should never get off the rails. And if I do, then I'm a terrible person. No, you're a human being.
Right.
according to human design, if you guys, we've talked about human design before, but if you know your human design, I think it's like 85% of the people, like the different like human designs, like 85% of them are not meant to be consistent.
Right.
Right? Like just do better. Like, we go a little bit and then you stop, and then you go a little bit and you stop, and that's okay. Like we
Yeah.
all we all need time to just be. Like you don't have to
So
be.
good. Yeah. And all or nothing thinking, I think that's a common one where, especially when, I've just seen it and we keep talking about, lowering your weight or being healthy or whatever. But I have witnessed a lot of times when I've seen people like, oh, well, screwed up my diet now, I'll just might as well forget about it. Like, you don't really have to be like, just because you had a cookie, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
Just make the next best choice.
Yeah. I don't know where it like happened that we got to be so hard on ourselves for stuff,
Yeah.
because we know it doesn't serve us. But it's like, oh, it's only the third and I didn't go in, well, today's the second, but whatever day you listen to it, it's like, I'm already off the way. It's like, just observe, observe and get data and be like, oh, this is what kind of knocked me off the rails, right? Because you're not the person doing it. You're really the observer, right?
And also, let's just admit that January 1st is a rather arbitrary date for choosing when to start something new. Who cares?
Right.
Like we put these weird, like, ooh, now is the day. Like, you know what? If you didn't get started on your mission for 2023 until the 10th, fine, start on the 10th. It's fine.
Right. So, like I had this aha recently, just in this past week, and actually I'm still, I think I'm pretty solid in it, but I'd be curious to hear your thought about it. Is that, so we're talking about beforehand, somebody that I know who chooses to drink and has a relationship with alcohol that I don't want in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've had series of events happen that one would think they would be like, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. And they haven't, right?
Yeah.
And this person has done so many different things, like plant medicines and stuff. And I started thinking about it. I was like, I don't think like whether it's plant medicine, whether it's energy work, whether it's, having a come to Jesus moment and, becoming saved, whether it is going to a 28-day program, whatever. I don't think those are the things that actually create the change. I think what creates the change is the person's decision that they are going to change. Yeah. And then they do those things and that supports their decision. Right. Like, and they make a choice like, oh, this is the thing that's going to change me. Right. But it's the decision. I'm going to be different.
Yes.
Period. I'm going to take responsibility for my life and I'm going to be different. And I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do plant medicine. I'm going to do energy work. Now, I do think that like those things help to make things easier. Right. But I still think it's that decision to say, I'm deciding, right, that I'm going to step into this new vision of myself. Okay? And from there, I'm like, things are going to come and support me.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. And I think, whatever support paths, whether it is plant medicine or energy work, never a one size fits all. I've never done ayahuasca or plant medicine. I'm still like on that space of maybe I'd be curious someday. I haven't really like it hasn't felt called, but I feel like I've still done a lot of stuff. So it's not like you have to, as far as clearing all my BS.
Yeah.
So you just have to pick the support systems that work for you. But I really love that you said that the foundation regardless, because I know people that have made sweeping changes in their lives and done none of those things. It was, like you said, a decision to be different and to believe that you can be different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, those things really can help. Like I've had some clients who they're just so stuck. And then I'm like, we talk about the heart wall, and these are like just coaching clients, not for energy. And I talk to them about heart wall, and then they're like, oh my gosh, as you're saying this, they're like, it just feels like a big yes. Like and then, after we release the heart wall, they're like, I feel like I have so much more space in my life to be able to like move forward now, where I just couldn't before. So I know that it does support it. And I know that it does support even when you don't believe it, because hello, I didn't believe in any of it. I thought it was a bunch of bullshit. Right. And I saw the difference. But I was like, I need something, like, I was just like trying for something. So
yeah, I think that's like our society right now, just what we've been through in the last couple of years. I'm noticing a lot more people are open to some of these practices that would have been laughed at or they might have thought were silly. Especially, even I'm just seeing it a lot in the Reiki space because I guess that's something that I'm in a little bit more these days. But people are willing to come and be like, I don't know, like nothing else is really helping me, so I'm willing to give this a try.
Right.
And then they're always like kind of blown away that it does work for them. It does help. It does help just kind of almost clear a fog sometimes when you're so deep in your belief about who you are and your ability to change.
Right.
Right? Can kind of give you a little bit of, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it can give you a little fuel to see like, oh, life could be different.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I that's why I said I'm still like, I do think that ultimately this is a decision. And I think that those things definitely can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
people have decided to change and nothing's changed.
Right. Yeah.
And I think there's that. I think, yes, you have decided to change, but there's that you don't believe that you can change. You don't believe that
Right.
change can be easy, and that's the stuff that we need to uncover. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
But so let's like leave people with some like just small tools. I don't know, like embodying a vision for me right there is just a very powerful concept. So that for me as a practice is really sitting down pen to paper and writing out who the hell do I want to be and how do I want to show up each day? And then what are the behaviors that get me there? Like just put a little map in place,
yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say just a little tweak on that is not like asking that question, like you said, is who do I want to be? Like, that is so much more important than like how do I become the person that I want to be.
Right.
It's when you ask who do I want to be, and then it's like, okay, that person, like then what are the things that they would do? Go from
Right.
that way versus like,
Yeah.
well, how do I do this? How do I lose weight? How do I? It's like, okay, if
Right.
I was somebody who already embodied that, like what would that look like?
Right. And I literally meditate on it. That's one of my biggest strategies. Sit down, close your eyes, and feel what that would feel like. And then sometimes you do discover, like, what am I really looking for here?
Yeah. Yeah. Because oftentimes it's usually not the first thing that pops up.
Right.
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 It's usually the next things. I was just trying to find this. And I created a document that I sent to my clients that I will drop in the links, but it's the end of year reflections and like remembering your future. Because I don't talk about like what's the plan. It's like let's look at 2023 and look back and be like, what was exciting about it? Like what things did you experience? Because creating an experience is so much different than here's my goal. Like, for me, my big thing for this year is creating this Sweet Money Freedom course. Well, I'm creating it. I'm in the process. Like the creation is the thing. Like that's the process. And if I'm just like, oh, I can't be happy until that gets done, then I'm rambling. But I'm looking for this quote. So I want to put this up there. This is something I heard from Abraham Hicks when I went, and it's just so good. I want to put it up so you can see it because this is what we miss so much. Excuse my double. Whoops. Wait a minute. Okay. You're the creator, creating the creation, and the creation is happily creating.
I like that.
I like that. When you're embodying the vision, you get to experience those feelings every day.
Yeah. And I think enjoying the process, kind of like bringing us full circle, but that's really like, it's fun. It's fun to be like, what do I want in my life? I'm going to have some freaking fun seeing how to let that unfold. Right. And being okay with the trial and error pieces, right? Like sometimes it's not going to go as you expected. And then you can say, oh, okay, what did I learn there?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can drop this link. If I can, it won't let me drop it here. But if you can just grab the sheet and end of year reflections.
Awesome.
Just put the
Yeah.
link in
And
there.
then send that to me so I can make sure we put it on the little show notes when I post it on Spotify.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just have some fun with it, right? And just think about what's the vision and, what's the feeling? Like think about, okay, here's my ultimate thing. Like I want to run the golden track. Well, what's the measurement, right? And what's the accomplishment? Those things we need to have. Like those are the masculine energy things that like move things forward. But those feminine energy pieces of what's the vision and what are the feelings that I want to feel, right? That feminine energy helps you move forward and stay in a place of flow, right? And when the action things don't always go the way that you want, right? Because the actions don't go and you're like, well, done, I'm done. Instead of, okay, this didn't, like, let's just shift and change and pivot, right? Because that feminine in that flow and mold and just be like, okay, next.
Right. Yeah.
So yes. Congratulations again. I'm so excited that you're starting this year, like embodying now, like you're living in the physical, the vision that you had.
Yes. Yes. And it really is like, I still have some moments sometimes where I'm like, is this my reality? Like, right. Yeah. It's good. And I'm super excited. Just in going through that experience, like it does kind of give you this itch for like, okay, let's see what I can do next. Now what? Yeah.
So exciting. I love that. Awesome. Okay. Well, we will see you all on our next episode. We got to get back on a track, on a schedule, but
yes, we will do that.
Yeah. Have a great beginning of your, whatever day you're listening to this. Remember that you get to choose all the time.
Always. Yes. You're the creator.
Times.
Exactly. All right. Well, happy New Year.
Bye.